The podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
And welcome back to the podcast that floats down here. Tonight, we're discussing episode 2 of the 1990 miniseries, which was written by Lawrence D. Cohen and Tommy Lee Wallace, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, which originally aired on ABC November 20th of 1990, and between the two-night premiere had 30 million viewers in its premiere, or between the two episodes. So, an average of 15 million, which any live broadcast today would kill for. So that's a pretty good turnout, though. But so the way we're breaking these down, if you didn't catch our last episode, we're kind of going through the the miniseries episodes and going first over the changes in the books, then some keynotes, and then a few of our favorite things. We're gonna start with the changes from the books that we noticed. Who would like to go first? Honestly, anybody got anything that stands out to them for their first note? Go ahead, Melissa.
I don't even know where to start. I have so many. I had my 3. I limited us to each 3, and then I have probably like 17 more. Okay. My first one is Richie experienced Pennywise in the library, not Ben. And that happened before the reunion scene at the restaurant, not during the walking tours, after of which there are no walking tours. Okay, I fit a whole bunch into one. That was one.
Yeah, no walking tours. I had kind of had a similar thing, or similar thought process, and because we did get Beverly going to her house before the dinner and everything, and it makes
That was close.
Stylistically, it makes kind of sense to, hey, we're kind of going to show back up and just randomly meander, getting their own kind of thing. It streamlined consolidation. Right. But yeah, no, definitely some stuff that stuck out. Mine,
right along with that, the walking tours were certainly quite a bit different, happening before the reunion. Richie and Ben switched, kind of.
Well, I'm trying to remember what Ben's was.
He got out of the car right at the county line, like Richie did on the way in.
Yeah.
But then he went down into the Barrens to help. Basically, he had a little memory there, and then kind of helped the new little fat kid in town.
Which was a little mash of Bill, too.
Yeah, and so, as Melissa said, then Richie gets the library scene, and it's just kind of like, why? That's gonna be, and I felt that way a lot in the first episode too. Of we're hitting a lot of the same scenes, but we're just choosing to do it with different characters, or even like the same monsters, but we're switching up like who sees that one and like where they're located. But we also have that set, so it's not like we just didn't want to build that. We just put a different monster in there. Like why? If you've listened to any of our Harry Potter movie commentaries, that tends to be my question on adaptations, when it seems like literally no budget difference and you're just butchering the story because why?
And to jump on that, usually my problem with the Harry Potter adaptations are, why are you wasting time on things not in this story when you have such a rich story to pull from? Which ties right into you, Benji. Go right ahead.
It's right into mine, yes. Because Mike having silver instead of finding it in the pawn shop, fine. Okay, streamline it.
Fine.
Okay, cool. He made it well. Something just made me buy it. And then I bought this 3 months beforehand. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
That makes sense.
Ray Campbell, you're killing it. Ray Campbell from Sister, everyone.
Yes.
Oh, I was getting there. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I was waiting to put it in there as well.
By the way, he is the best of the adults.
Yes.
Most of the time, yeah.
That scene leads right into a bike riding montage. And we are gotta do it in a montage.
Even Rocky had a montage.
And it bothered me so much. Because typically, yeah, Melissa, I understand your Harry Potter anger, especially with the first couple. I don't mind some of the sweeping shots.
No,
And you
no,
have 90
no.
minutes in this movie. You have 90 minutes of screen time. Do not waste it on a 4-minute bike ride. That means absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it just that it started me off poorly for this.
But they were having fun. Look at all the fun
Fun.
they were having.
And we'll get into more fun later with another montage. And it's just okay. So that was my first one, my first takeaway change thing. I'm like, where the hell was the bike ride in the books? There's so much other shit you can pull from, but nope, you have to create a montage of a bike ride. Okay, that's fine. So go ahead, Melissa.
I'm gonna go back to Richie because I feel like I'm gonna have some fighting words here, but bear with me.
I don't think you have any fighting words for me on this one.
Richie is so negative and mean and cranky and needs like a Prozac or something. I mean, he's just mean. I don't remember him being that angry in the book. Scared, yes. Funny, inappropriate, sure, but just blatantly rude and defensive, not so much. And I really think, remember how I said all along, like, oh, Richie's not my favorite. I don't really like Richie. And then I was like, man, I really like Richie. I wonder why I didn't like Richie. I think this is why. I think it's Harry from Night Court. I think it's his version of Richie that just I had ingrained in my head of this really ridiculously annoying man who needs to take a chill pill. And I think it didn't do justice to the book character.
I will have much more on that later, but Benj, please go.
No, that's completely fair. I mean, I don't disagree with you that he was turned, like the character was turned up way more than how it felt in the reading. I didn't dislike it. Again, I am partial to these just because I saw these first and everything, but I didn't dislike his portrayal of it. It was a bit over the top, but I didn't mind because he needed that one character, especially with Stan being dead. You needed one character to stand out as the voice of reason, for lack of a better term. He's the reasonable one. Who's like, we gotta get the hell out of here. This is stupid. Hey, I came back for the reunion. We had some dinner. We had some chucks. I'm gone. And it's that's what a reasonable person would actually kind of do in this situation. Instead of putting yourself in mortal danger, it's not unheard of. So,
but not Richie. Richie's second in command. He's got Bill's back like nobody else does. I mean, that's the way I always read him, and that's why I'm very surprised at his negative, being a little bitch attitude. Honestly, is kind of how I feel about it. I'm surprised at how he was portrayed.
Yeah,
I don't like it personally.
That's fair. I don't know. Like I don't dislike it, but I can understand where you're coming from, and it kind of maybe ties into that the fact that he's been married several times, and which is a change that's going into my next note. It's a change from the story. He was never married. He's always been the bachelor, the single guy. He came close, but Beverly's not married to Tom. That's just she said the guy who I live with, Tom, and it's like okay, because I couldn't remember even on this watch through. Does Tom show up? Like I couldn't remember. Yeah, well,
nope.
Yeah, no, and he doesn't.
And he's never mentioned again.
No,
yeah, she just runs
rides
away.
off into the sunset.
That one shot to the forehead, which was awful looking in the first movie. That did it.
Don't even get me started back up on that one.
Yeah, and
so with that, only Bill and Audra are married. He's the only one that's married.
Yes. Yeah. No, Stan was married.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Stan was married. But so that's the thing, like, because that always bothered me too, or like watching this when she first walks in the dinner and she passes out, she immediately wakes up and kisses Richie, and then she runs over and Bill kisses her. Dead on the lips, and I'm thinking, okay, she's married, he's married. We know, they're as we're in the story, it's like, okay, cool, but they have to play it up in the dinner. Oh yeah, he's just the one I live. That's just Tom who I live with. And so now Beverly's not the bad guy she left him, whatever, but even if he was an abusive husband, not as bad as Bill, straight up the married guy to a decent woman, that, He's just kissing this, chick that just had a passionate kiss. So it made him look worse, just with that one line of that Tom's the one I live with, not my husband.
Not saying it's right, but I'm not saying Audra's that decent. She kind of sucks.
Well, I don't disagree.
That doesn't mean she should be cheated on by Bill.
I am not saying that.
I know that's not what you're saying. I know.
I'm just saying, you called her a no, she's not Continue. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to throw that in there. She sucks. Go on.
She sucks as an actor.
No, go on.
Yeah, but as a human, she seemed like a decent human. I'll put it that way. We'll get into that later.
I have more thoughts.
Yeah, Luke, go ahead with your next thought, though.
So whenever they finally get to the library, right? This is after the reunion, and they all get back to the library, and Richie's doing some voices or whatever over the PA system, and Mike's trying to get a hold of Stan, right? I don't know if I like that Mike doesn't know that Stan didn't kill himself already. Like, I think it gave a lot of different feel to it that he found out with them, as opposed to Mike having that knowledge and letting them all know, no, he's not going to make it. And I think it has to do with what we're all here for. It just makes it feel different. It makes Mike seem less knowledgeable. And that's one thing I really like about Mike, is how he's got his thumb on so much. And so it just changes his character slightly. And I was just a little surprised by that.
No, and that's fair. I do. They again streamlined it to where this is the very next day after the call. So before there was a 2-day split from the calls to the time they showed up. So Mike had time to keep up with the news and find out that information, kind of thing. But no, I do agree with you on that. And then Richie being an asshole during the whole phone call, where it's like, shut the hell up, trying to talk. And yeah. All right, Melissa. What is your next big thought or big change?
So I like that they had a nod to the prior instances of Pennywise coming back, but they completely changed the timeline. In it, I think it was Mike said, the fire at the Black Spot in 1960, and the Iron or Kitchen Works exploded in 1930. Except they were there in 1960, and no, there was no fire at the Black Spot because you would have been there, because that's when you were a kid.
When they were kids.
Right. Like, so not only did they basically moved all of the events up one block. Rotation, if you will.
And then moved one back because they said the massacre in 1900 or 30 years before that, because there was one other one they mentioned, and they said massacre on whatever street.
But really, the massacre happened at the same time as I want to say the Kitchener Ironworks or something like that. They were like, one was the beginning and one was the
lumberjack massacre.
No, I was thinking it was I guess this one would have been the lumberjack massacre that they were talking about. Yeah, the 1900.
The other thing to keep in mind is that by shifting it to 30 years instead of 27 years, like, you do lose some, because it was 58, and then before that was 31, and before that was like 1905 or 6, somewhere in there. And then I think maybe the massacre or the lumberjack massacre was like the 1800s one, wasn't it?
I think no, because we got an interview with the guy, so he was very, very old. So it was like it was the 1905, I think, was the lumberjack. And then he had the Kitchener. That was the start of, and then Kitchener was the end. And then in the 1920s or 1930s, it was the start was the gang shootout, and the end was the Black Spot. Yeah,
they didn't have them like they spread them all out. It was just weird. Nobody else will care. It was just me.
No, I'm right there with you. All right, Luke, what's your next thought there?
Good question. What's my next thought? This kind of jumps forward a little bit. I'll just quickly mention another bit difference. Eddie version, no Moira at all. We kind of mentioned that last episode too, that he just lives with his mom. And
no
Myra. I didn't go back and look. I was like, that's close enough. Anyway,
that's close enough. I'm with you.
But yeah, another change I found interesting was Henry not killing his father. We just don't have that at all, and that to show that he's like ever goes into that truly lost it state where he is truly on its casters, right? You know, where he is being guided by Pennywise, and like that rolls a little bit into the end of episode 1 where it's like, okay, well, what? Like Henry's just out of the picture now, and it's just a bit lame, I think, for
Yeah.
how Henry was used and or not used, because I thought that was a pretty compelling reason to force them in when they may or may not have been ready. So
Exactly. And chiming into that, no 1958 Plymouth Fury driven by Belch.
right,
You know, I was kind of hoping for that one, like just a quick scene with pull him out of there. You don't have to let him sit and wander around. Belch guides him out of the mental institution, guides him right to the car. It would just make sense, but couldn't even get that one in. So my next thought on it is changing Stan's story from the standpipe to the house on Neibolt Street. A rough estimation of it. It was a little bit fancier than what I would have pictured the house being.
Right.
But then we get the mummy here. So it's kind of another mashup of multiple things. You don't have the leper, you have the mummy, which mummy was Ben's. And I'm glad that they got those factors in, got a random house, got, and we actually got somewhat of, Stan's story. I know we got it in the books and stuff, but episode 1, we didn't get Stan's story. All we got was he got freaked out by Pennywise jumping out the book kind of thing. So I'm glad they gave him a little credence to building up his character before killing him off.
All right. Can I go through my list of everything else we haven't said yet?
Yes, you can.
That was different. Luke, you've got one kind of written down there. Do you want to do yours first?
Yeah, and you had kind of mentioned it, I think, in the last episode. I just realized it as we got there again. The children never go through the door. They just kind of hang out in that little waiting room, if you will, just kind of random little set there. But they never actually go in through the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no sign on the door either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So here's my list. Ready? Mike gets attacked at the hotel and not at the library. Pennywise dresses up as Beverly. What the fuck? No Bill being a cheating son of a bitch. Mike's I got low and went to the sewers backstory to get the weird silver earrings. No baby it eggs. Bev actually did shit during the attack. Eddie got Stan's I believe speech, and Eddie's body was brought out.
Yes.
Those were the big changes I noticed.
And most of them I'm actually okay with. Besides the Mike at the hotel, because him at the library made more sense. I didn't hate the Beverly Pennywise thing.
I did.
And I know somebody else has a
somebody's got a thing on it, but
yeah,
it was a change.
I didn't hate it. Bill,
I loved Eddie, I believe, speech.
Yeah, I like them working that in for Eddie. That was very fitting. The baby it
Again,
eggs,
a lot of it's just consolidation, right? I mean, it wasn't unnecessary change. It was more of I can see why that morphed a bit. That's why a lot of it doesn't really bother me, I think, either in general.
Well, and that's why I just put that all in the list. Like these are actual changes. No comment. Just
that's fair.
This was different.
That's fair. All right, so we're going to move into our big thoughts on this episode. I'm going to start with mine, and the Mrs. Kirsch scene. I remember, watching this long ago, and it freaked me out. This is one scene that stood out to me, and whenever I thought about the books, this was one scene that I always thought of. And this does not hold up well. Compared to the books, compared to other things, to the book, I should say, it's nowhere near off-putting. It's nowhere creepy. It's not. I mean, and again, they had to PG it, they couldn't get away with as much on it, but it just there was so much you could have worked with, even on a censored level, that they didn't. And it just I think they missed a lot of it. I like the actress who played Mrs. Kirsch. I think she did the creepy role very well, but it just the scene itself wasn't spectacular as spectacular as I remembered it.
Alyssa, what are your thoughts on the Mrs. Kirsch scene?
I liked Mrs. Kirsch. It wasn't great, but none of it was great. And it was Beverly, so not a big fan. But I didn't hate it. I think they consolidated it to the best of their ability. I don't know. It was like creepy enough without being like
disgusting.
Yeah.
Mhm. I thought it
I don't know,
was.
I like them drinking up the tea like that. That always kind of gets me. It was like, ooh, that's a good
The
moment.
slurping.
But yeah, but whatever. I had no opinions one way or the other, to be honest.
I kind of thought it was a pretty effective scene. Again, for what they could do, I thought it hit the real theme of that. The biggest takeaway that I had, I think it got, where she leaves and looks back and sees that it's all boarded up, and like, did she ever go in? Like, to me, that was always the most interesting thing about it. Is like, is this happening in her head? Does that make it still real, Harry? But to me, I thought it was a decent scene, and yeah, like the change of having her just like slurp the tea and how it turns to blood. Like, I thought that was just off-putting enough. None of this entire miniseries was scary in the least, but
No.
it has a certain creep factor that I think was acceptable to sell the scene for me, I guess.
Oh.
I mean, if something has to be scary, that was definitely better than other things in the movie.
Yeah. So, Melissa, with that said, go ahead with
Okay.
your thought on here.
I really feel like after this, I don't really need to say much. I will, but
And she will.
She will.
here we go. Oh, the overacting in this episode. I'm going to be honest. I tried watching this 2 weeks ago. I made it halfway through the second episode and I was like, I cannot watch these people anymore. I cannot watch them. And then I had to watch it. I had to because I had to at least get to the end of it and take notes, right, to see what happens. And I'm watching it going like, this is just awful. And then I realized why it's awful. It's like they all went to Joey Tribbiani's acting for the soap operas class. And then as soon as I started looking at it as a soap opera, it wasn't that bad.
Can I say the reason I went ahead and did a little research on who made this was because I was very curious if the director in fact went on or had been doing soap operas, because of the way a lot of it's framed. And the thing that really stood out to me first was actually in the first episode, and I can maybe roll into my next note with this as well. It's a bit of Audra hate, so Melissa, you'll be right on board with me. The first scene where Bill and Audra are talking, and they're bickering and fighting, which is way out of character for both of them. I hated it from the start, but it has that right up in their face camera, and it's like quick shots back and forth, only seeing the person's face as they're talking, and I just instantly had a feeling of, oh, this guy went to soap opera school. Like, whoever's directing this has experience in soap operas. That's exactly what it felt like to me. It's over dramatic, and just again, it's just the way it's shot made me feel that with the adults almost every time, especially one-on-one scenes with the adults. Not as much with the big groups, because that doesn't happen as much in soap operas, if I'm being completely honest. Not that I'm a huge expert or anything, but
That, and as much as I don't like Richie's like negativity, his over the top like loudness kills some of the overly dramatic pauses and smell the cheese acting that's happening. So
yeah, so I'm so glad that you had put this soap opera comment in here too, because it's exactly how I felt every time the adults were on screen. And I think so. I did a little more research too on who some of these actors and actresses were, because I know some of them, I recognize several, but like Audra has a very distinct look. I didn't know who she was, but apparently one of the most highly acclaimed performances of Juliet in 1967 of all time. Apparently an incredibly gifted actress.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Not in this role. This is garbage. And like, I really feel like it, like the way it's written with her scene with Greco. Her, I guess, producer, film producer, or the director. It really seems to hint that they already had an affair going on before this. Did you guys get that feeling at all?
Yep.
Where he like kneels down and he's like, maybe this is opening the door for things that should have been, or like can now be easier. And I'm like,
he was nice guy in her. He was, you don't need to be with Bill. You can come and, so I don't know if there was a straight up affair. I think it was
have a bonbon.
it was the friend zone guy friend.
I watched it 2 more times because I was interested in what he actually said, and I still
Because
got
you're
the
a
feeling.
glutton for punishment?
I was just curious because it was already so far out of character on how Audra and Bill were treating each other, like that. I was just curious what other motivations there may be around it, but so I'm still not completely sold that there isn't an affair going on already, but it just none of it makes sense. And this is gonna be a comment. I'm just gonna go on an Audra and Bill roll a little bit. This goes all the
I'm
way.
here for it.
This goes all the way to the very end. It literally wrote down, I really don't like Audra in the middle of my little note here. And stopping in the middle of the road at the very end when they're riding the bike, go fuck yourself. Like, get the fuck on the sidewalk. What are you doing? Like, I get it. Oh, I just saved her life or her eternal soul or whatever. Get the fuck out of here.
Great.
Get out of
We're
the fucking
so
road.
excited for you.
Like, and I love how every one of their cars stops and they're like, what the hell? What are you doing? Get out of the road. But shout out to Richard Thomas's ponytail. It looks terrible.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I was gonna.
It almost made my least favorite thing. I decided to put it up here instead.
I debated so hard on putting that in the changes from the book thing, because
it is awful.
Bill's supposed to be balding. He's supposed to be. I'm like,
you can't make Richard Thomas bald.
You can give him not a ponytail. Looks terrible.
Yeah.
I get that it's 1990. Billy Ray Cyrus, he's up there. We got mullets.
No, you're a good 2 to 3 years away from that.
It's on its way. It's on its way. It's in the realm that I was 6 months old. I was a year and a half when this came out, so I remember. Okay.
You know nothing, Luke Hogan.
That
ponytail's just terrible, though.
Yeah, that was. I read your note and I'm like, oh, he better not actually be like. Okay.
I literally originally wrote that the line below my least favorite thing, and then decided to just go on this Bill and Audra hate rant.
No, that's fair. So going on to the Bill line, it's not much of a hate rant, but I did like where they find it comes randomly off the fax machine or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He thrusts his fists against the post, and Bill's stuttering through it, and he goes, "My mom gave me that to help my stutter. No offense, Paul, ain't happening." Okay, that one got me. That one got me a chuckle out of it. That one got a chuckle out of me. I don't know why. It's a stupid throwaway Richie, insult line, like you said.
But that's an actual Richie line as opposed to angry Richie.
Yes.
Like what you want from Richie.
Yeah, that's taking the piss out of someone, Richie, that you want, not just being a dick. So, but yeah, that one got me. I did appreciate that line in the library there, and then shout out. I want to make sure I'm not stating anything to Stan's head. Oh, what is that actor's name? Adult Stan.
Harry Anderson, was that right?
No. Harry Anderson played Richie.
It was the third one.
Richard Mauser. Yeah, Richard Mauser. I loved it. When I read it in the books, I pictured this Stan head in as we were reading it, and he hit the jokes, hit the hey, look, the sissy, and just calling them all out, and just okay, it was good. You could feel the Pennywise coming through him, but I liked it. So anyway, Melissa, what was your next big takeaway?
So mostly because I stopped paying attention to the actual plot because it wasn't great. But that's not true. The plot was great, but how they were doing it wasn't great. When Eddie went to the drugstore and we saw the flashback to Mr. Keene and then the new Mr. Keene, really the same Mr. Keene, but older Mr. Keene. The only thing I thought about in that whole scene was wow, Mr. Keene, played by Tom Heaton, by the way, he looks so much like Bryan Cranston.
Yeah. I didn't catch it until I saw your note. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch.
I had to go back and look and make sure it wasn't some relation of some sort. And that was one of the best parts of the show for me.
Fair. All right, Luke, go ahead with your next thought.
So this is a bit of a difference, right? And we just have a total lack of space-time, tongue-biting, WTF, LSD, adventure extravaganza, and that was disappointing because of, and like I think I said this, I was a little thrown off and maybe anticlimactic feeling in the book for how it's done, but that would be such an awesome visual thing that would have been done awfully. It would have been terrible, but at
Oh,
this
yeah.
point, I was looking forward to it. I was very much looking forward to it. And especially like when they first, we'll say, defeat Pennywise in the sewers, and like he's got the big light beam coming out of his head and he turns into a claymation mold and gets pulled down the drain. I was so looking forward to the turtle. I was so looking forward to all of that gobbledygook, and I'm just a little disappointed.
I'm sorry, now I've got this whole like claymation like zooming thing with like a little Play-Doh turtle on the side. And,
Okay, so so take that idea. All right, stay with me. And I know you two will know what I'm talking about better than I will. So, we had some video cassette play along video games, and one was a space game where you could fly and shoot.
I've looked that game
looks
up.
a lot like Star Fox, but it's not. But that's the feel of it. Maybe Melissa doesn't know. I know.
I don't know.
Benji would definitely know. Beer Hog absolutely would know. But it was right along. It just, I remember it being. I'm looking right at the cabinet that it used to sit in, the water meter cabinet that has shelves underneath, and it also had. We also had the Play Along Clue video cassette.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah. So that, Benji, if you can imagine that type of, I guess late 80s production of flying through space. That's what I was looking with claymation.
With a claymation turtle.
That's so basically Gumby in space is what I'm looking for here. That's what I'm looking for, folks. And I didn't get it. So if anyone out there is an independent creator who wants to put this together as fan art, please send it to floatsdownhere@gmail.com. Because oh man, I will send you some stickers. I'll send you a red fucking balloon.
And if you can name the VCR game, because it really bothered me, because I literally looked it up like about 3 months ago, and you bringing that up now is bothering me that I can't think of the damn name. So if you think of that, put it in our comments, tweet us. I'll send you a balloon if you can give me that name. So anyway. But yeah, no, look, I absolutely agree. I can definitely see that. And that does kind of tie into my note. I liked the look of the lair itself, its lair. It felt okay. It was the Cave of Wonders kind of thing. Had the webs with the people hanging up there. I was, I was good with it. And until you saw the spider. And it's like, but now even then in the books, it's just a fucking spider. So if you just saw the movie, you saw this miniseries without knowing anything about the books, it's a fucking spider. It's like, yes, Melissa.
I would like to. My daughter walked through as I was watching this part because I thought they would be scared of it, so they didn't want to sit. Layla turns and looks at the spider and goes, "Don't they know spiders have 8 legs? That one has 6." And I was like, "You can't fault you there."
Nope. And I saw your note, and technically, he's got 2 front pincers. He's got 6 walking legs
6
and
appendages.
He's got 8 appendages.
I meant 8. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. 8. Yeah, I know.
It's supposed to have 8 legs, so it's not even a spider.
True. But they definitely did get the Eddie death right.
You could use a little bit of that $12 million to make 2 extra legs. Come on.
They did get the Eddie death right. I think they gave him well-deserved death and a well-earned. He didn't go out like a bitch. He went out fighting. And they got it right with "Don't call me Eds." And just cut it there. It's like, okay, straight from the book. One thing we all said we really enjoyed, we liked, and it was well done. So
except it was spaghetti and not Eds.
You're right. Yes, no,
the theme is there. The emotion is there. I agree with you. I thought that was enough. It was done well enough.
I mean, compared to other things, it was downright amazing. But
yeah, I'm going with the relative scale. I mean, Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Melissa, go ahead with your
Okay.
thought there.
So this is the part of the movie that I remember the best, to be honest. And as I was rereading the books with you guys, I kept looking for it, going, where is this thing? Because I know it's there and it's not. It's like barely hinted at. Ben and Beverly's relationship, right? Like it feels a little weird. It's hinted at in the books. It is played up huge in this, right? The fight outside the hospital and the weird thing with Beverly, not Beverly, who's really Pennywise in the hotel room, and then the Grease scene of riding off into the sunset in the convertible. Like, I don't hate that they got together. I just hate the soap opera Eve part of it. Does that make sense?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's consolidated, right? We can't have as many complexities, so we have to just kind of go with the easy thing, right?
And it's, network primetime television. There's got to be a love story somewhere. So we're
Right.
going to wait some times with the two of them talking outside
Mm-hmm.
after Mike got attacked. So it was fine. It just sat funny with me.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it ends up getting to where the story actually does get to, right? Like it has the same end point. They have that drive off into the sunset kind of thing. They just take off, and they rent a car and take off. It's like that happens. We just don't really see it, and that can't really come out of nowhere in, we'll say,
Right.
just this hour and a half long episode. Like it has to be hinted at a little bit more, and then I'll have a couple more things to say in a minute, but I think it's fair.
Okay, so I have two more quick things before we there's like a couple of like extra notes that we had. I just want to throw out Ben's story about losing weight basically stayed the same,
Yep.
which I liked. Not sure who had this one about name dropping with the chief. Benji, was that you?
Yeah, that was mine. When they were leaving the hotel with covering Henry Bowers up on the news, it says, and Chief Rademacher
Yeah.
says we're trying to figure out these disturbing deaths. I like the name drop of putting the chief of police in there, and we did get Officer Nell. We didn't mention Officer Nell, and
Oh yeah.
so we got both of them. We got both police officers that we know of, or two of the police officers we know of. And then my other last final note was the ending was way more climactic compared to the book. I think they actually tried to make it a bit more visually friendly, as Luke, you were saying, you wanted the tongue-biting extravaganza LSD fueled thing, but the way for the TV viewing audience, it fit. And then, yeah, we actually got the entire group doing it, not just Bill ripping out the heart and everything. It was a group effort. So I'm not saying I liked this version better than the book, but I was okay with it.
So I just realized, because of my Audra seeing red earlier, I totally skipped over my very first note.
Yeah, you did.
I really like grown up Eddie the best. I think he's acted well. I think he's just solid, and I like his walking tour. And Bev's, I know I mentioned Mrs. Kirsch. Of all the ones that we saw, those are my favorites. I really liked the scene with Mr. Keene. I know Melissa mentioned that he looked a bit like Bryan Cranston, but I really liked the way that they showed old Mr. Cranston, old Mr. Keene, old Mr. Keene, like definitely out of his wits. It makes you think, was he really there? Right? I mean, his grandson, his son, whoever that is, responds to him, but then it's just kind of like, yeah, it does some dairy things, right? And dairy people things that we don't get very much of. We get Bev looking at Mr. Someone across the street who doesn't help her. I forget what his name was, which was, again, not really, I don't think it was the same name from some of the people from when she was running away in the book, or whatever. But like, we have very little of the ignorance in dairy, and I liked the breakthrough of Mr. Keene, calling Hydrox H2O water. Like, I thought it was a pretty good way of showing, yeah, there's something more going on here. And then it morphs into Pennywise's voice. So pretty strong scene compared to everything else, I'd say.
So as you guys know, my husband wants absolutely nothing to do with the podcast. or any podcast at all. Refuses. Absolutely refuses. But watched these with me. And so I turned to him at the end of 3 hours of this, and I looked at him and I said, So what'd you think? Got any notes for me to add in? And he just looked at me and he goes, That's pretty lame. Which, I mean, is a lot coming from Bob. So just know, like, usually he wouldn't say anything. So he must really not have liked it.
Yeah. And that's fair. If you don't know anything, like, I don't know why this holds such a place in my heart. I mean, this time through was probably the first time where I'm like, it was a slow. Yeah, I was 5, but even watching it 3 years ago, right before we started this, I was like, oh, it's on TV. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. And now, yeah, after delving so far deep, and it's like, okay, fine.
Darn
It's not
intellectual power.
That Luke and Melissa, they really ruin everything fun.
right.
That sounds about right.
It's smart people making me read.
Can't just let me enjoy Tim Curry, god damn it. I only like one kind of curry in this world, and none of it's Indian. It's all Tim. Sorry, bad joke. Anyway, moving on to our favorite things of this episode. Luke, what was your favorite thing?
So I know Melissa kind of already said her feelings about it, and I'll tell you why she's wrong. No, that's not true. I kind of like the Ben and Bev stuff working without Bill being involved at all in that, really. Like, there's the one awkward, little too intimate kiss when she wakes up after passing out at the reunion. But other than that, it's really just kind of a slow pivot to just Ben and Bev, which it really always should have been. Like, I always thought that, and it always made sense to me. Yeah, it's a sappy soap opera version of it, which, I mean, whatever. Like, we've already mentioned why that makes sense, and that's exactly why they did it. But I also really did like the Ben kissing Pennywise in the hotel scene, when she kind of comes in the room and she's like, "Oh, I just wanted a minute, alone together," and he's getting his hopes up, right? And then it turns out he's looking in the mirror with kind of her between him, and he sees the white paint on his cheek, and then he sees the big poofy pants, and it's just like, oh god. I thought it was funny, and then especially because like 3 or 4 minutes later, you get almost exactly the same words coming from actual Bev, and he's like, "What the hell is going on? Is that really you? Like, what the fuck, man?" Like, I just thought it was a good way of doing it, that because we haven't seen too much of, other than the really generic fears that the kids have, being Pennywised, being boggarted, right? That was a really simple way of showing that Pennywise can do a lot of things, right? And he can get into your deepest, darkest desires and use that against you. And I thought it was pretty effective, and just as a catalyst to making that love story actually happen. So,
Can I just say really quick, like you were saying, the first scene with like, my heart burns there too, and then it ends up being Pennywise, and then it happens again, and she says it again, and Ben's like, what's going on? And she's like, but Beverly goes, of course it's me. It's me. I'm like, that's exactly what Pennywise would say. That's what I was thinking in the movie. I'm like, of course you're going to say it's me. Everybody would say that even if it's not me, because I want you to think it's me. That's all.
See,
I don't agree with you. That was funny in my head when I was watching that.
Now, one other reason why, because I'm thinking through this right now as you're talking about that, Luke, but one other reason why I kind of like that scene is because subtextually it distracts Ben, who would be Henry Bowers' biggest threat, while Henry is going to attack Mike. So Ben's distracted with Beverly. It's Pennywise's way of pulling him away. Eddie to Pennywise and to Henry is not a threat, which turns on him, but in that instance, Ben was the bigger threat, being so close, so they had to distract him with Beverly. And so I like thinking of it that way. It's like, that makes sense to me too, using that scene for that.
Yeah, I can buy that.
So I'm gonna, Melissa, I'll let you go ahead with your favorite thing here.
So my favorite thing was an actual line, not just a scene. It was Eddie going, I think I remember who Pennywise was now. big white guy, red nose, about 75 feet tall, mouth full of razor sharp teeth. Like, that's exactly how they felt,
Mhm.
right? Eddie nailed it. Also, special shout out to "Kiss Me, Fat Boy," which
Kiss me,
is
fat boy.
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that in the Ben kissing Penny that also sells it too, is just
Yes,
yeah.
Tim Curry is the best part of this entire
Kiss me, fat
production.
boy.
Which ties right into my favorite part, which, because of Tim Curry, is the library scene with Richie. Because when we started reading through this, when it was Ben doing the library scene, that threw me off because I knew this more so. And but with him doing the stupid dad jokes, just the yucking it up, and just pure Tim Curry over the top acting, which is what you want from, like, as we said, from Pennywise. You want the over top acting and that aspect, but also on top of it, the balloons blowing up in the random citizens' faces full of blood and nobody batting an eye. I know,
One lady flinched. I was like,
yes,
"You broke character, bitch."
she did, but the rest of them, just sat there and took it. And I don't know if it was painted or how they did it thematically. It looked like they got shot in the face with, a spray of the spray patterns looked like they got sprayed pretty
Mhm.
well. So it was like, for those subtle just extras to take it, take it like that, it stands out to me.
All right.
So, all right, we're moving on to our least favorite things, and I will go with mine first on this. Besides the crappy spider, just let's all be general, that just was a crappy spider.
Not very good.
The feel good montages. Had the dinner montage, had the bike montage. You wasted literally, I timed it during the dinner, just of them not talking, but like actual lines, but talking or in music going over the top of it. 3 minutes. 3 minutes on a random montage of that, and 3.5 minutes on the bike montage. That's 6 minutes of airtime you could put to anything else. To anything else. But no, you used it for random montages and our musical interludes. I'm sorry. That's a fail in my book. All right, Luke, go ahead and go with yours.
This again kind of harkens back to something Melissa has pretty well touched on earlier, and
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think you set the tone well for why this is my least favorite thing, and it rolls into a couple things, but Richie just kind of being the worst, and he's just a total downer, right? And he's just trying to back out instantly. He's like, "Oh, I showed up, but I'm not staying." Like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, that is so far from how I view Richie in general. It's again one of those. Why are you changing the character so much? I don't think we need this inner strife to make this interesting. I think you already have a good story. We don't need to change it this much. And not even just Richie, pretty much everybody bailing the whole time. Like, it's only Mike who's just like, "You guys showed up. I have no other expectations." And then, Bill's kind of like, "Well, let's hear him out at least and hear what's going on." But I mean, Eddie's kind of like, "Maybe it's a good idea not to say anything," which not to stay at all. And I get that, but like the bickering between them, especially at like the reunion and the library, that they're just like not committed to staying and fighting this is really surprising, that they have a lack of backbone on coming back and fighting. And it was pretty much the whole time in this second episode, which I think makes this even more frustrating to watch, is because they're bickering at each other for no goddamn reason. And it just changes the dynamic in there, where it's almost like they're being guilted into staying, because we have another Jonathan Brandis flashback when he says, "Help me, help me," and he's got his eyes are crying and he looks so sad. And Big Bill, adult Bill, kind of has the same thing, and they all hug out in the carport, right? And it's just not good.
Yeah.
Was that well enough, done well enough,
That's-
Melissa?
Thumbs up.
So, Melissa, I saved yours for last. What was your least favorite thing?
Okay, so I really thought about it. I love Stephen King. I love Stephen King novels. I've been a big fan of his work for several decades now. I liked this, I've obviously watched this miniseries before. Apparently, I showed it to Benji when he was a toddler or something like that. Not that I remember. So I really wanted to like it. But my least favorite thing is the miniseries. I I am the first to admit that I do not like adaptations of my written works. That's pretty standard for my taste
It's a basic default.
right. Like I've actually written research papers for college on it. So like I get I have a bias. I understand. Having said that, I'm really, really looking forward to the more current versions of the book.
Which you have not seen at all.
I have no idea. I just know Finn Wolfhard is in it. Like that's what I got, right? Like I know very little. And I'm really hoping coming off of the miniseries that having that nice miniseries buffer between the book, which I love, and the movies, which I know nothing about, and the miniseries, which is literally the worst. That gives me enough of a fresh like palate cleanser to enjoy the newer movies without holding the book against them quite so much, because this was rough, boys.
Can I say that if we would have started with this miniseries, I would have not had a good taste in my mouth going into the book. I personally, it's just
Fair.
it would not have worked for me. I think.
Fair. No, and again, I can respect that, and I can completely understand that. I do have a bit of nostalgia for this because this was like one of the first horror things I saw when I was a kid.
And we're also watching this almost 30 years later.
Yes,
I
it's
mean,
almost 30 years
right.
later, and
and it's a made-for-network TV movie. Like,
right.
Yeah,
I'm trying to judge it on what it is,
but it was done for sweeps. November is sweeps month. Just saying.
Like truly, it's not as a standalone thing. It's not completely awful. It's not. I don't think that it is. It's if you haven't read the book, it's worth watching. I think it's worth checking out. It's 3 hours of your life. You're probably not gonna do anything anyway.
If you watch it the right way.
Worth watching. Read the book, I think, is
Yes.
the main thing. The book is incredible. If you're listening to our 50th episode,
Close to it.
likely you've at least listened to us talk about the book. It's pretty darn good.
Yeah, no, and I do agree. You know, like I said, this movie does hold a special place in my heart. It held a better place before your guys' damn involvement in my life with it. But but no, does it hold up well? No, but it's still enjoyable. I mean, when my kid's about 7 or 8 years old, I'll probably show them this. I'll show them this before I show them. I mean, you showed your 10, 11-year-old. I thought you said Leah was watching it too.
Oh no, they were just in and out. They refused to watch it. I tried.
Okay. Gotcha. See, yeah,
I also tried to get my 11-year-old to watch Scream this weekend, and she said no. I don't know what's wrong with her.
Well, and so it's like, is it the scariest thing in the world? No, it's a good introduction into horror, I think. But yes, the book is way better. I'm looking forward to seeing your guys' reactions to the new adaptations. I've seen both of them. I enjoyed both of them. There are issues we will talk about, but I can't wait to see what you guys think about it. And so with that said, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Make sure, go ahead, Luke. Make sure you're leaving us comments and questions and everything. Hit us up on all the socials at Floats Down Here. Send us a digital balloon at floatsdownhere@gmail.com. Make sure you check out the podcast, that.com, where you can check out all of our shows. Subscribe, rate on iTunes, and also on YouTube. You can find us at Floats Down Here on YouTube as well. All right, I'm sorry, at the podcast that on YouTube as well.
This show and all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com are produced with the love and support of our wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. Are you not a patron yet? You can find out more at patreon.com/stayimaginary.
So make sure you join us next time where we'll be covering The Losers Club, Chapter 1. You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.